Ladies and gentlemen, President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. Thank you very much. Thank you. Such a great Congress Center, such a great venue. I truly appreciate it and congratulate the city with such a facility. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I welcome you here in what has historically been a powerhouse of Russia's science, education, and industry of Russia, in Yekaterinburg. I welcome you here at the Global Manufacturing and Industrialization Summit. It's for the second time running that it brings together governments, businesses, science, non-profits from almost across the globe. And essentially, it is a serious contender for becoming a much called for international platform for an in-depth conversation of the challenges for new technological era. Let me use this opportunity, and I'm truly thankful for this invitation. I want to use this opportunity to dwell a little bit about Russia's approaches to tackling and addressing the fundamental and, no exaggeration here, civilizational challenges. Let me dwell a little bit on our vision of the nature of long-term trends that define and mold the global development, that define the risks that we are encountering or might face going forward. Indeed, today, the ever-increasing pace of technological transformation changes the shape of the entire regions and industries beyond recognition. It changes core principles of production and business models. Systems of artificial intelligence, 3D printing, and other technology make a tremendous impact on efficiency of governance and labor productivity. One might think, well, here it is, the new industry without factory chimney stacks, no waste heaps, the very post-industrial society free from environmental risks that futurologists of 20th century were dreaming about. And yet, the hope that the technology itself will save the planet from the ever-increasing man-made footprint proved to be an illusion. Environmental and climate degradation goes on unabated. Its consequences are all the more grievous: droughts, crop failures, natural disasters. Russia feels its impact really acutely. I mentioned it time and again. Average temperature in Russia grows at twice the pace than on the planet in general. Well, take a look at the planet. Hundreds of hectares of forests are suffering from wildfires, floods, and so on. If nothing is done about it, the booming technology will not allay, it will aggravate the ecological challenges, which means the resource depletion and climate change. It is predicted that by mid-2020s, billions of communication devices and the evolving infrastructure of storage, transfer, and processing of data will consume over 30% of the global energy output. So what would offset this giant consumption? There's no specific, no clear-cut solution so far. Meanwhile, production is scaled up, energy is consumed in pretty much the old-school way. What does it mean? It means that it will inevitably translate into new risks and further climate change. By the way, even today, the quarter of all carbon emissions comes from energy sector. Other major polluters in terms of greenhouse gases are agriculture, industry, and transport sector. And there is no solution here as well. How do we ensure that we see both the long-term development and growth of production output and yet secure the well-being of nature to improve the quality of life? How do we make sure that the digital and technological revolution, that robotization and Internet of Things will not eventually drive us into a resource and environmental dead end? These challenges, the way we see it, require an in-depth, substantial discussion. Yet what do we hear instead of the substance, instead of substantial talks, instead of discussing global climate environmental agenda? We're often seeing an outright populism, speculations, and, I'll give it to you point blank, an outright obscurantism. We are even hearing that the world should give up the human progress as such, that we should preserve the status quo and create the oasis of well-being for narrow groups. And what? Hundreds of millions of people on the planet should meekly accept what they have? Or should I say rather, what they don't have? They don't have access to clean water, they don't have access to food, they don't have access to education, they don't have access to other benefits of civilizations. This backward-looking views is a road to exactly nowhere. And a derivative, the consequence of this approach, one of those, is the immigration crisis in Europe. It's the direct consequence. And the same is the situation in the United States. And then equally futile is the opposite view. It's the blind faith into the cookie cutter, showy but inefficient solutions. I'm referring to such solutions as complete rejection of nuclear energy or hydrocarbon energy, or an attempt to exclusively use the existing alternative sources of energy. But will people really be comfortable living in a planet littered with pails of windmills or covered with several layers of solar panels? As we say it here, instead of cleaning up the house, we're going to sweep the garbage under the carpet. We are all aware that the wind-powered generation is a very useful thing, but do we remember about the wildlife birds? It's a huge impact that the wildlife is suffering, and I'm referring to the consequences of use of windmills. I'm not saying that we should forego the windmill generation as such, but we should bear in mind all the ramifications that it entails. Granted, we cannot ban everyone who wants to do this to go all the way back to the Stone Age, but we cannot stop human progress in its tracks. It's both pointless and impossible. So the real question is, what will underpin this progress? How do we accomplish the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals set by the United Nations?
I am convinced that ensuring clean air, water, food, and that is new quality of life and life expectancy for billions of people requires drastically new technologies and technical devices which are less resource-intensive but much more eco-friendly. Such uber-efficient scientific, engineering, manufacturing solutions will allow to strike a proper balance between biological and technosphere, to reduce and efficiently control human footprint. This includes the so-called nature-inspired technologies. They imitate natural processes and systems. They follow the laws of nature. An example of nature-inspired technologies is, although weird it might seem, thermonuclear energy, which is actually what imitates the process of the production of heat and light inside the sun. Potentially, we could get a colossal, inexhaustible and safe energy source. But, like it is true with the thermonuclear energy, we will successfully resolve other fundamental tasks only if we will improve broad international cooperation, as well as collaboration between states and business. If we unite the efforts of the academia representing different strands of scientific thought, if technological development will become truly global, and it would not be fragmented and restrained by attempts to monopolize progress, restrict access to education, to create barriers in the path of the free exchange of knowledge and ideas. By the way, a poignant example of a truly open natural and technological cooperation is the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, ITER. It is the basis for the controlled thermonuclear fusion experiment, and Russia takes an active part in this project. We are ready to share our scientific infrastructure for joint research and for joint work of international scientific teams when it comes to nature-inspired and other types of breakthrough technologies. Inter alia, this includes unique mega-science facilities. Using such facilities, scientists could literally see how nature creates its objects. I would like to highlight that such facility is an integral part of a cross-cutting center of nature-inspired convergent technologies, which has functioned for some 10 years in one of the leading scientific centers of Russia at the Kurchatov Institute. St. Petersburg has seen the launch of the most powerful source, the neutron flux reactor, called PIC. It is the basis for the newly established Center of Neutron Research. Design phase is underway for a truly unique specialized source of synchrotron light of the fourth generation, which is now active in Novosibirsk, and the construction and modernization of megascience facilities in Vladivostok and Protvino is in the pipeline. For their work in Russia, various international research teams, as well as for major cross-cutting projects and creation of scientific clusters, we are ready to suggest the most favorable conditions and various support mechanisms. Russia now sees the launch of major technical and scientific programs, which would have a major nature-preserving and environmentally friendly dimension to them. This is true for such areas as artificial intelligence, new materials, genome technologies, and clean solutions for agriculture, as well as for mobile energy sources and energy transfer and energy storage solutions. In order to implement this task, we are ready to tap into the potential of our leading companies with state ownership. And just recently, many of you have probably seen that I went to Italy and talked with our partners. And in Italy, our colleagues also involve state-owned companies. So we take parallel tracks in this area. So this is a national task ahead of us, and we have the proper public resources which would be channeled into the key areas of development. In order to implement all those tasks, we are ready to engage our companies with state ownership, and of course, we count on active partnership with private business and the so-called technological entrepreneurs. We believe it is vitally important to form an efficient legal and regulatory framework for them. We understand that it is a problem for us nowadays. This is not a fast process. We want to accelerate it, but it is important not to rush into it, not to make any mistakes which would lead us to some unforeseen consequences. The government has been tasked with developing an efficient mechanism for fast-track adoption of regulatory and legal solutions in technological sphere. And in general, we will continue our consistent work to improve business and investment climate in Russia. Such freedom of thought is a key condition for the success of the society and country in our fast-changing world. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, we need to find systematic responses to the challenges we're facing. This is the guarantee of our sustainable development. I believe that in our era of tectonic changes and uncertainty, and growing uncertainty at that, the priority for us are the intrinsic values, and that is the creation of better opportunities for life and development of people. It is the ultimate goal of the impressive achievements of technological progress. And this great responsibility lies with us for the future of our planet, and we need to work together. Dear friends, Russia is open for such a broad and equal cooperation. I wish you every success and thank you for your attention.